Evelyn Grace Carter had always walked a tightrope between logic and longing, keeping her heart caged behind walls of practicality, and yet nothing in her 25 years had prepared her for the night Las Vegas rewrote her fate. She had come to the city of illusions not in search of dreams, but to bury one, a shattered engagement that left her hollow, betrayed, and craving anonymity under neon skies. Her best friend, daring and reckless, handed her a white costume dress and a plastic bouquet, laughing as she pushed Evelyn toward a spur-of-the-moment bridal roll in a themed wedding chapel, promising a few laughs, a wild story, and nothing more. The plan was absurd, comical even. Pose as a bride, say fake vows, pose for pictures, and forget the night ever happened. But when Evelyn stumbled forward in lace and heels slightly too big, she was met not by a staged groom or a cheesy Elvis impersonator, but by a man with ocean blue eyes and a soul so unreadable, it pulled her in like gravity. Cole Remington had never planned to get involved, but the sight of the bewildered, half-sobbing woman in a veil, mistaken for part of his party's chaos, sparked something inexplicable inside him, a need to shield her, to offer her steadiness in the dizzying blur of Sin City. The chapel, though small and tacky in decor, was legally binding. The officiant, certified by the state, read real vows, and the rings, meant as props, slid too smoothly onto trembling fingers. One "I do" echoed in Evelyn's ears like a gunshot, and before she could back away or laugh it off, she was Mrs. Evelyn Remington, accidentally, irrevocably, and without a single clue who the man beside her truly was. Morning sunlight spilled across the unfamiliar hotel suite, warming white sheets and exposing the truth with brutal clarity. Evelyn Carter, heartbroken runaway, had woken up in a penthouse bed with a wedding band on her finger, a legally signed certificate on the table, and a very real billionaire beside her. Cole stirred beside her, shirtless and calm, as if marriage were an everyday occurrence. But the moment her voice trembled, asking what had happened, his expression turned unreadable, then quietly resolute. She demanded annulment, the obvious solution, but he leaned in, voice low and unnervingly calm, whispering words that chilled and burned all at once. What if this accident is the only thing in my life that's ever felt right? Evelyn stared at him, heart pounding, breath short, because something in his voice wasn't casual. It was wounded, genuine, as if he'd been waiting for something real and had accidentally stumbled upon it through her. She wanted to scream, to run, to erase the night. But there was an ache in her chest that whispered she'd crossed paths with fate, not just folly. He didn't beg her to stay, didn't flash his wealth or status. Instead, he offered her time, space, and one simple promise. He wouldn't trap her, but he wouldn't let her go without showing her what he saw when he looked at her. Days blurred into hours, and against all logic, Evelyn boarded his private jet, not out of romance, but curiosity. Curiosity about the man who could make a mistake feel like destiny. As they soared through clouds, silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but charged, her heart a storm of confusion, while he gazed out the window with the calm of a man who had seen too much and trusted too little. The estate came into view like something from a dream. Vineyards rolling like waves, a mansion gleaming under the sun, solitude wrapped in opulence. She wasn't ready, yet she stepped forward, not as a wife, but as a woman drawn to a stranger whose presence felt unnervingly familiar. Every step she took into Cole's world felt like walking deeper into a story that had already begun without her. A story of secrets, silence, and a love that might have started as a joke but was anything but funny now. Her hands trembled when he helped her off the plane, his touch gentle but firm, as if afraid she'd vanish. And maybe she should have, but something told her fate doesn't make mistakes. It only masks them as accidents, waiting to be unwrapped by the right hearts. The moment Evelyn stepped beyond the grand wrought iron gates and onto the polished marble floors of Cole Remington's estate, the air shifted, thicker, colder, laced with an unspoken tension that prickled her skin like static. It wasn't just the extravagance that overwhelmed her, but the eerie stillness that clung to every golden-framed corridor and echoing hall. Nestled high in the misty green arms of Napa Valley, the mansion didn't feel like a home. It felt like a secret, frozen in time. Staff members moved like shadows, their eyes lowered, their greetings practiced and distant, as if they were trained not just in service but silence. Evelyn's heels clicked across imported stone, her breath caught in her throat as she passed beneath chandeliers that dripped with crystals and history, their light cold and unforgiving. She had never felt so small in her life, not even when her ex-fiancé broke her heart, because this place, this haunting monument to wealth, watched her like a stranger trespassing in a ghost's memory. Cole walked beside her with casual elegance, his presence calm but unreadable, his hands deep in his pockets as if he'd forgotten how to reach for someone. And then came Veronica. Tall, polished, and wrapped in designer silk like armor, she descended the curved staircase like a queen returning to her throne, her perfume sharp, her smile sharper. "So this is the wife," she said, her tone delicate and dripping venom. Evelyn stood her ground, but the woman's eyes, lined with secrets and superiority, sliced into her like glass. Cole's jaw tightened, but he didn't correct his stepmother, and that silence told Evelyn more than words ever could. This family had fractures hidden beneath every layer of gold. Left alone to settle in, Evelyn wandered through the sprawling estate, her footsteps hesitant on velvet rugs and her reflection catching in too many mirrors. She found herself drawn to a forgotten corner of the library, a room that smelled like cedar, old paper, and memories not meant to be revisited. It was there she noticed the portrait, framed in antique silver, hung above a dusty piano. A woman in a white dress, with hair the same shade of copper blonde as Evelyn's, eyes eerily similar, and a soft sorrow curled in her smile. Her chest tightened. Something about the resemblance was too precise, too haunting to be dismissed as coincidence. As she reached out to touch the frame, a soft voice interrupted. "That's Amelia," said Tessa, Cole's younger sister, no older than 19, with wild curls and eyes that flickered between caution and curiosity. Tessa sat cross-legged on a velvet armchair, like a child who had grown up hiding behind furniture and watching people lie. She offered Evelyn a crooked smile and a warning tucked in a whisper. "Don't let this place decide who you are. It will try." Over the next few days, Tessa returned again and again, sitting beside Evelyn in sunrooms and shadowed halls, unraveling family truths in pieces, never the whole cloth. She spoke of how Amelia had once been everything to Cole, his first love, his fiancé, the reason he stopped smiling after a summer fire tore her from their lives. But something in the way she said it hinted at more than just grief. There was betrayal here, betrayal that sat in the bones of the house. Evelyn listened, trying to stitch together the puzzle she'd unknowingly become part of, realizing she wasn't a mistake but a mirror, and maybe a replacement. Veronica's disdain grew colder by the hour, each glance a challenge, each meal at the long dining table a performance of civility wrapped in tension. Cole remained distant, present in form but absent in heart, his phone always near, his words careful. Yet sometimes Evelyn caught him looking at her with a gaze that burned too long, too quietly, as if he were searching for someone who no longer existed. Nights were the hardest. Her bedroom was opulent but hollow, the silence deafening, the shadows restless. She could hear footsteps sometimes, hushed voices behind closed doors, and once a cry muffled by distance. The house wasn't just rich, it was haunted by unfinished stories. Evelyn started keeping a notebook, writing down questions, thoughts, feelings she couldn't voice. Who was Amelia really? Why did Veronica act like Evelyn was a threat? And what truth was Cole bearing beneath his measured calm? The mansion wasn't just a home, it was a labyrinth of grief and manipulation. And somehow Evelyn had walked straight into the heart of it. One afternoon, while searching for solitude in the garden maze, she stumbled upon a stone bench etched with initials, C+A. She sat there, fingers trembling over the carvings, and for the first time since Vegas, she wept. Not because of fear or regret, but because she realized she might be falling for a man who hadn't yet let go of a ghost. The vines wrapped around her like secrets, and the wind carried voices she couldn't understand. Somewhere deep in the estate, something was waiting to be revealed, something that would change everything. Evelyn wasn't just Cole's accidental wife. She was about to become the unraveling of his past. Evelyn sat frozen on the cold stone bench, her fingers tracing the carved initials as dusk swallowed the garden maze in deepening shadows. But just as the air began to chill with nightfall, she found herself wondering if the ache in her chest was from grief she didn't yet understand or love that arrived too fast, too silently. Back inside, the mansion was humming with preparations for an upcoming Remington charity gala. But Evelyn moved through it like a phantom, distracted by Cole's sudden gestures, soft glances, spontaneous laughter, a late-night knock with hot cocoa, as if he were building a bridge between their accidental vows and something real. She tried to remain guarded, reminding herself she didn't belong in this golden cage, but the walls around her heart betrayed her as quickly as her eyes betrayed her silence every time he reached for her hand across the table or brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. One evening, beneath the glow of 1,000 fairy lights in the rose garden, Cole led her to a small marble table set for two, soft music playing from somewhere unseen, stars winking overhead as if in approval. "You don't have to be anyone else here," he said gently, offering her a poem he'd written, the ink still smudged, the words honest in their rawness. She wanted to believe him, to lean into the warmth of his touch, to surrender to this unfolding story, written in stolen glances and whispered laughter. But fate was cruel, and trust was fragile. Days later, while searching for a misplaced earring near the drawing room, Evelyn paused behind the half-closed doors as voices drifted out, Veronica's sharp tone laced with venom, and then Cole's deeper voice, frustrated, desperate. "You promised you'd drop this," he snapped. "The bet was never real. I never intended to marry for amusement," Veronica scoffed. "You said it yourself, Cole. You'd marry the first girl who didn't chase your fortune. You just didn't expect to like her." The words sliced through Evelyn like glass. Her stomach twisted, breath caught, and her vision blurred. The garden nights, the poetry, the kindness. It was all a game, a dare from a man too rich to feel consequences. Her soul cracked in the silence. She retreated, heart racing, tears building in her throat like a rising tide. And once in her room, she packed in silence, folding dreams into suitcases, wrapping emotions in wool sweaters she'd never wear again. But as she reached for the door, suitcase trembling in hand, Tessa appeared, eyes wide, hair in disarray, clutching a tablet. "You have to see this," she insisted, her voice fierce and unyielding. On the screen, Evelyn watched a video. Cole, furious, confronting Veronica weeks ago, demanding to be left alone, refusing a political marriage to a senator's daughter, pleading to be free of the shackles of family expectations. "If I have to lie to escape this madness, I will," he declared. "I'll marry someone who doesn't see me as a brand. I'll make my own future." Tessa looked at her, pleading. "He wasn't playing you, Evelyn. He was trying to survive." Evelyn's breath shuddered. Her suitcase dropped. Truth rearranged the pieces of her heart, but forgiveness wasn't a switch. It was a storm. That night, she avoided Cole, ducked out of sight when he searched the halls, and when they passed near the stairwell, the silence between them screamed louder than any confrontation could. He looked at her with confusion, hurt simmering in his blue eyes, but she turned away, too raw to speak, too betrayed to breathe. Love, she realized, didn't die in betrayal. It drowned in words unsaid, in glances that faltered, in rooms filled with everything but explanation. She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the possibility that what they had was real, but born under the shadow of something false. The next morning, Evelyn walked the vineyard path alone, dew brushing her ankles, the sun painting gold across her skin. But inside she felt nothing but gray. She passed the carved bench again, this time not stopping, not looking, afraid that memories were now traps. Cole watched from the window, his jaw tight, his fist clenched. He didn't know what she'd heard, didn't know what she believed, only that her silence was louder than rejection. And Evelyn, torn between the ache of almost love and the sting of misunderstanding, wondered how something accidental could feel so vital, yet hurt so much. Their marriage may have been a mistake, but the pain was devastatingly real. Evelyn had barely begun piecing together the remnants of her emotions when the arrival of Bianca Fairchild shattered the fragile calm like a wineglass dropped on marble. The woman swept into the Remington estate like a storm in heels, sleek, raven-haired, and armed with a venomous smile that knew exactly how to draw blood without raising her voice, her presence casting long shadows across Evelyn's already uncertain heart. Bianca moved with practiced grace, the kind cultivated in years of privilege and pursuit, and wasted no time in confronting Evelyn under the guise of a polite introduction during breakfast. Her voice silk-wrapped daggers as she leaned in and whispered, "You think he's different with you? Darling, you're just the current chapter in a long, predictable book." That seed of doubt took root and twisted painfully as Evelyn watched Cole across the room, laughing with Tessa, his arm brushing against Bianca's. Moments later, his expression unreadable. The weight of not knowing her place, of not being chosen clearly, loudly, clawed at her. But fate, in its mysterious timing, led her to the West Wing library again, this time seeking space and silence, only to find it interrupted by something far more telling. An old leather-bound journal buried behind first editions, its spine cracked with time. Curiosity cracked open the cover, and her breath caught as delicate sketches danced across the pages. Dozens of them, pencil strokes capturing a woman with her eyes, her jawline, her very smile, all dated years before their supposed accident. With trembling hands, she turned the pages, each one whispering a truth deeper than words. She hadn't stumbled into Cole's life. Somehow he had dreamed her long before they met. That night, when the house was quiet and moonlight painted silver trails through the hallway, Cole found her beneath the weeping willow near the vineyard, journal clutched to her chest, tears staining the corners of her lashes. He didn't hesitate. "I saw you in dreams before I ever knew your name," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "I sketched your face because I thought it was imagined. I didn't know you were real until you were standing there in that veil." But Evelyn, raw with confusion, could barely meet his gaze. The whirlwind of Bianca's accusations, Veronica's cold judgment, and the ghost of the bet still haunting the air between them. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked, voice breaking like a fragile shell. Cole reached for her hand, but she stepped back, not in anger, but in mourning. "Because everything we could have been is already bruised," she whispered. The mansion, once strange and then familiar, now felt like a stranger's home. She couldn't breathe there anymore, couldn't trust her own feelings beneath the scrutiny of Cole's world. So she left. With the dawn came her silent departure, her suitcase lighter than before, but her heart heavier than ever. She returned to her small apartment, a place with peeling paint and leaky faucets, but also with peace and echoes of a simpler life, hoping the distance would quiet the ache inside her. The city felt colder, the bed emptier, but at least it was hers. Cole didn't chase her, not immediately. Maybe he thought she needed space, or maybe he was just as lost. Evelyn sat by her window at night, watching headlights blur past like forgotten dreams, trying to remind herself that love should feel safe, not like a war she had to win. Yet in every quiet moment, she heard his voice in her mind. In every forgotten journal page, she saw the truth he'd tried to show her. But still, her heart whispered, "If he wanted me to stay, why didn't he fight harder?" The weeks after Evelyn left Cole's mansion passed like shadows, soft but heavy, stretching longer than they should have. She returned to her small apartment, the scent of familiarity oddly foreign now. She tried to forget him. She filled her time with books she couldn't finish, movies that didn't make her laugh, and late-night takeout that never warmed her like his presence once did. But no matter how hard she tried, every thunderstorm reminded her of his arms. Every drop against the window whispered the memory of that night. Dancing barefoot, her laughter tangled with his. And as the rain fell again on a quiet Friday night, something in her heart shifted like a tide returning to shore. A soft knock came at her door, almost drowned out by the storm. She opened it, not expecting anything, only to find the one man she had both longed for and resented. Cole. He stood there soaked from head to toe, his dark suit clinging to him, water dripping from his black lashes, a bouquet of white roses trembling in his hand. They were her favorite. She had told him that once, long ago, over a forgotten dinner and half a glass of wine. She stared at the flowers, her heart caught between racing and breaking. His lips parted slowly. "You once told me silence was the loudest pain," he said, voice hoarse. "I've heard every second of it, Evelyn. Let me fix this." Something inside her cracked, not loudly, but with the softness of surrender. She stepped aside without speaking. The scent of rain followed him inside, mingling with the faint vanilla aroma of her apartment. They didn't rush into embraces or kisses. Instead, they sat in silence beneath her threadbare blankets, a candle flickering between them. Their fingers touched gently at first, like strangers remembering the language of familiarity. Words began to spill, not rehearsed or polished, but raw and real. He confessed his fear of being caged by his family's expectations. She admitted the pain of being misunderstood, the ache of always leaving before someone could stay. They laughed softly at memories from the mansion, the time she got lost in his wine cellar, the moment he tried to cook for her and nearly burned down the kitchen. But underneath it all ran something deeper, a current neither could deny anymore. His thumb traced the curve of her wrist like it was a page in a story he didn't want to end. She leaned into him, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling. Yet there was no urgency, no hunger for more than the moment. It wasn't lust, it was love, patient, unfolding, honest. Later, when the rain lightened into a gentle drizzle, Evelyn took his hand and led him outside. The street glistened under the lamplight, in puddles mirrored the stars. Without saying a word, she began to dance, barefoot, free as if shaking the sadness from her bones. He joined her, arms around her waist, spinning her gently as laughter returned to her lips like sunlight after a storm. It was just like their accidental wedding night in Vegas, only this time, it wasn't an accident. It was a choice, a vow without words. They stood still beneath the sky, raindrops catching in her hair, roses forgotten on the doorstep, and hearts speaking louder than any apology ever could. Cole looked at her not with desire, but devotion. "I dreamed of you before I knew your name," he whispered, "and I'll dream of you long after this moment ends." She didn't reply, not with words, but her hand sliding over his heart said everything. It was love, the kind that doesn't just warm, it heals. The kind that doesn't burn you down, it builds you anew. And in that quiet, sacred rain, Evelyn realized this wasn't the end of something broken. It was the beginning of something breathtaking, something no one could manufacture or manipulate, something that didn't need chandeliers or ballrooms or last names carved in gold. Just two souls who had wandered through storms, only to find that home wasn't a place, it was a person. And on that night, with roses and rain and redemption in the air, Evelyn Carter knew she was home. The morning after the rain and roses felt like a fragile truce between two hearts, once bruised by silence. Evelyn woke with her head against Cole's chest, the quiet rhythm of his breathing grounding her in a truth she was no longer afraid to feel. But peace was short-lived. Cole's phone buzzed urgently, and his face hardened as he read the message. A legal advisor from Napa had uncovered inconsistencies in his late father's will. Veronica's name appeared too many times in places it never belonged. "She's trying to force my hand," he muttered, eyes dark with storm, "by making that sham of a marriage to Bianca a legal leverage for control." Evelyn sat up, her breath catching. It wasn't just a manipulative woman. It was a war over legacy, loyalty, and love. And this time, she wasn't backing away. By nightfall, they were in Napa again, no longer the girl running from a mistake or the man weighed down by his family's shadows. They were soldiers now, united by truth and wounds that had become armor. Cole's estate buzzed with tension. Staff exchanged whispers and side glances, and Bianca's car sat smugly in the driveway like a serpent waiting to strike. But Evelyn didn't flinch. Tessa met them at the door, holding a USB drive close to her chest like it was a grenade. "Veronica's been paying off a lawyer. Dad's original will, it's gone. She submitted a forged version last year after his second stroke." Her voice shook, but her eyes were fierce. Inside the grand boardroom where decisions shaped empires, Cole stood at the head of the long mahogany table, his jaw taut, his gaze unwavering. Veronica sat poised in white, all pearls and poison, with Bianca beside her in red like a flag of war. The room fell silent as Evelyn stepped forward. Her presence, once seen as an intruder, now commanded attention. She played the first recording. Veronica's voice slithered through the speakers, boasting about erasing Cole's freedom with a signature and a smile. "He'll have to marry her," Veronica said in the tape, "or the estate goes to charity." Gasps rose around the room. Then Tessa dropped the bomb. Emails, financial records, and handwritten notes all showing how Veronica had manipulated Cole's father's declining health to sneak in control clauses. Evelyn's voice didn't tremble when she spoke again. "This isn't just about money. It's about the legacy of a man who trusted the wrong people. It's about a son fighting for his father's honor. And it's about the woman who loves him enough to speak when silence would be easier." Board members began murmuring, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others glaring at Veronica, whose calm veneer finally started to crack. Bianca leaned in, whispering furiously, but Veronica snapped at her, unraveling in real time. Cole stood quiet until now and said, "I've made mistakes, but trusting Evelyn wasn't one of them. She came into my life by accident, but she stayed by choice. She helped me find what power should feel like. Not domination, but justice." The chairman nodded slowly, turning to the rest of the board. A vote was called. One by one, hands rose. Unanimous. Veronica was removed. Her title, her influence, everything, stripped in a matter of minutes. She screamed accusations as security was called, and Bianca followed her out, heels clacking like punctuation marks in a bitter novel's ending. Silence fell again, but this time it was laced with relief. Cole sat down heavily, the weight of years finally lifted from his shoulders. He turned to Evelyn as if no one else existed. "You didn't just save me," he said, voice cracked but steady. "You made me." Evelyn blinked back tears, not the kind that fell from sorrow, but the kind that came when someone finally saw you, truly saw you, for all the storms you'd endured. Around them, applause erupted, but for Cole and Evelyn, the noise faded behind the gravity of their connection. This wasn't just a win in a boardroom. It was the restoration of a man's soul and the affirmation of a woman's worth. Evelyn wasn't a mistake in Cole's life story. She was the rewrite. And as they walked out of that room, fingers entwined, there was no more running, no more silence. Only the fierce, unshakable promise of what they'd built together. Born not of fairy tales, but of fire, war, and unwavering love. Under the golden embrace of the late afternoon sun, the vineyard stretched endlessly around them, each leaf shimmering as if nature itself celebrated the moment that was about to unfold. A moment years in the making, born from chaos, pain, and an unbreakable bond. The air was thick with the scent of ripening grapes and fresh earth, a quiet witness to the promises that would be spoken beneath the endless sky. Cole stood tall, every inch the powerful billionaire, yet his blue eyes were softer now, filled with a vulnerability that only Evelyn had ever glimpsed, a man who had fought his own battles and won the greatest victory of all, the surrender of his heart. Evelyn, glowing in a simple, elegant dress that caught the light with every movement, felt her pulse quicken as memories of their accidental wedding, the pain of betrayal, the silent wars in the mansion, and the nights drenched in rain came flooding back. Yet today was different. Today it wasn't a mistake, nor a forced union. It was a choice born from the depths of two souls that had finally found their way home. The guests around them, a small gathering of family and close friends, held their breath as Evelyn stepped forward, her voice trembling with emotion, but unwavering in its truth. "I once married you by chance, in a moment neither of us expected, but I vow to love you by choice, from this day forward, with every heartbeat, with all that I am." Her words hung in the air like a delicate melody, echoing the journey they had endured, a journey marked by broken trust, whispered secrets, and a love that refused to die despite every obstacle. Cole reached out, his hand covering hers with a tenderness that made her heart ache and swell with hope. His voice, low and raw, carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken promises. "Evelyn, you entered my life like a wild storm, turning everything upside down. But you also brought light to the darkest corners of my world. I vow to never let you go, not out of obligation, but because my soul craves yours. Because without you, I am incomplete. Tears shimmered in his eyes, reflecting the brilliance of the setting sun, a silent confession of the battles he had fought within himself to reach this moment. Around them, the vineyard seemed to lean in closer, the gentle rustle of leaves like applause from the earth itself, acknowledging the triumph of love over doubt. Evelyn felt every word like a balm, healing the scars left by Veronica's scheming and the shadows cast by Bianca's return. The pain they had endured together made this union more than just a marriage. It was a testament to their strength, resilience, and unwavering commitment. As they moved closer, their lips met in a kiss that was gentle yet filled with passion. A kiss that spoke of forgiveness, of trust rebuilt, and of a future they would now create together. Time seemed to stand still as the world around them faded away, leaving only the two of them suspended in a moment of pure connection. The golden light wrapped around them like a protective cloak, washing away the pain of the past and illuminating the promise of a shared tomorrow. Cole's arms encircled Evelyn, holding her as if to never let go. And in that embrace, she found the home she had long sought, a place of safety, love, and belonging. Their guests watched in silent awe, witnessing not just a wedding, but the rebirth of two hearts entwined by fate and choice. Evelyn's thoughts drifted back to the night in Las Vegas, the accidental vow that had led them here, a reminder that sometimes life's greatest blessings come wrapped in unexpected packages. She smiled through tears, knowing that the journey ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but with Cole by her side, every storm could be weathered. Cole whispered against her hair, "You are my forever, Evelyn. Not because the world told me so, but because my heart chose you." Those words settled deep within her, planting seeds of hope and unwavering faith. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, the vineyard became a sanctuary where love had finally found its rightful place. The night air carried away every lingering doubt, every shadow of pain, leaving only the radiant glow of two souls who had fought fiercely for each other. Together they stepped forward into a future unburdened by past mistakes, strengthened by the lessons learned and the battles won. Their love story, once a tangled web of secrets, misunderstandings, and accidental vows, had blossomed into something rare and beautiful, a bond unshakable and eternal. And as stars began to twinkle overhead, Cole and Evelyn danced beneath the vast sky, the vineyard alive with the quiet music of their hearts beating as one, a perfect symphony of love born not by chance, but by destiny. Their journey was far from over, but in this moment, under the golden sky and endless vines, they had everything they ever needed, a vow made not from accident, but from the deepest depths of love and choice.